Algebra 2, we got our 4B summative test review. Okay, our front side here of the test review should match up with the front side of your quiz and will match up with the front side of your test. Okay, we have our solve by factoring problems. You'll have one of each of these types on your test, and each one has its own thing that should signal, hey, this is that type of problem. If you have an x to the fourth to lead off your problem, it's probably going to be that quartic factoring, where we treat it like a normal factoring problem, and you can still do the magic x, and then we just have to start our parentheses groups with x squared. If you see x cubed plus or minus a number, okay, there's no other x's, it's just x cubed and then the number, it's probably a sum and difference of cubes problem. And remember, our patterns for those will be on the top. You have to think about what was being cubed, and then those will fill in the spots for all the a's and b's. Remember that your first spot should give you a nice answer, and the second spot will not give you a nice answer, and you will need to use the quadratic formula, which is conveniently located in the same formula box. And our last problem on the front side will be your factor by grouping. And we factor by grouping when we have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. That's when we would use factor by grouping. So each one of those has its own signal there that should really give it away as to what type of problem it is. Let's get into it. Number 1, 4x to the fourth plus 3x squared minus 7. So we have an x to the fourth, which is my signal, my hint, that this is going to be our quartic factoring. We do have a multiplier in the front, so I would recommend doing the magic x with front times back. Okay, negative 28. And adds to 3. What multiplies to negative 28 and adds to 3? We'll have 7 and a negative 4. Then, because you times by 4, now we're going to come back and divide by that 4. Negative 4 divided by 4 would give us a negative 1. So if you can reduce it or simplify it, do it. If you can't, no big deal. Okay, the bottom number comes up in front of your x. So this will be 4x squared. Remember, that's our trick. And it was a positive 7, so plus 7. And then this one was just minus 1, so that's just going to be x squared minus 1. All right, and then to solve, we just set each one equal to 0. 4x squared plus 7 equals 0. Subtract the 7 over. 4x squared equals negative 7. Divide by 4. Negative 7 fourths. Okay, and when we square root, you're going to break it up to the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom. Okay, I can do the square root of the bottom. The square root of 4 is going to be 2. I can't do anything with the top, but I can do that negative. We'll have a plus minus I radical 7. Okay, I can't do the square root of 7, but the negative, we could come out as I. Technically, that's like a negative 1. So then the square root of negative 1 would be I. Square root of 4 is 2. So here's some of our answers. And then we still have the nice one. Now you could also set this one equal to 0, do the square root plus minus stuff. This one is a difference of squares, if you remember that. X plus 1, x minus 1. Plus 1, Mr. Handke. Okay, so then our x's would be negative 1 and 1. You can also just add the 1 over and square root and do the plus minus. So there you go. Don't forget to put all of those answers on the answer line. Then we have sum and difference of cubes. Okay, so we have x to the third plus 27. Let's think about what's being cubed. Okay, what's being cubed? X is being cubed, and then what cubed equals 27? Now, if you forget your cubes, okay, it's not that difficult on your calculator. Start at 2 and work your way up. 2 power key 3, 3 power key 3, 4 power key 3, and you can just keep climbing up. Okay, if you want to just go right to it, you could also do math. You can go down to cube root and just type in whatever number that is. And it's 3 that's being cubed. Okay, sometimes that's tough to find for kids on their calculators, and it's just easier just to start with like 2 or 3 and then just keep going to the third power until you find the number you're looking for. It's faster just to do that on the front than it is to go through all the menus and try to find the cube root. Okay, either way, that's a 3. Okay, so we're using x is being cubed and 3 is being cubed. And it's a plus, so we're going to come up here to the sum of cubes formula and follow that pattern. So we're going to have x plus 3 in our first parentheses group. And then we'll have x squared minus x times 3, or 3 times x, plus 3 squared, which is 9. I'll put a little 3 squared right there so you see where that came from. Okay, our first spot is always a nice one. -3. Don't forget to put that on the answer line. That's a very frequently missed problem, is kids will forget to transfer that to the answer line. They'll do that one right away. They'll go through the quadratic formula here, and then they'll forget to come back and get this one and put it on the answer line. Okay, we know this one is not factorable. We have to do the quadratic formula. A is 1, B is -3, and C equals 9. Okay, so when I do the quadratic formula, and again, that's up there on the top, we'll have negative of b, so negative of -3, plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. Okay, if we're going to simplify inside the square root, you will need to do, especially if it's a negative, you want to go parentheses around that -3 squared. Or just use your brain. You know -3 squared is 9. Okay, but if you just typed in -3 squared like that, your calculator is going to tell you -9. So make sure to use your brain or use your parentheses. -3 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9 should be -27. So negative of -3 is +3, plus or minus square root of -27 over 2. Okay, now reducing these radicals can sometimes be intimidating, but we know a secret for the sum and difference of cubes is that this will usually / always end with a radical 3. So I can take -27 and divide by 3, and that's the perfect square. So I could split -27 up into the square root of -9, which we can do now, and 3. The square root of -9 should be 3i. And I can't do the square root of that 3, so it stays all over 2. And there it is. Don't forget to put both of those on the answer line. Now, if this was one that could reduce, like a 4 plus 6i over 2, 4, 6, 2, they're all divisible by 2, then you could reduce by a 2. Okay, the bottom one here, factor by grouping. We're going to go parentheses around the first 2 items and parentheses around the back 2 items, including that sign. Okay, look at what's in common to the first group. Usually it's just x squared. So we're going to take x squared out in front, and that leaves us with a 2x plus 3. And now that's your hint. That's what you're trying to make that one be. So what can I take out of this, out of both, that would leave it with a positive 2x plus 3? Well, I could take out a negative 5. And now that would be a positive 2x and a plus 3. Okay, whatever's in the front, they go in a parentheses group, x squared minus 5. These two, they're the same one. We only write it down once, 2x plus 3. Okay, now we factored, and we're just going to set each one equal to 0. And we should get plus or minus the square root of 5. And this one should be pretty nice. Negative 3/2. Okay? And going off our rubric, if we get those 3 right, we're at a level 2 already. So a solid C just from getting those 3. I think we can all get those 3. And then we get to the back side, and again, these are all very doable. I think we could all do this one. Just the synthetic division one does have some potential to have a bit of an uglier number in the quadratic formula, if you even have to do it. Okay, so to get started, it does not even give us a number to use in synthetic division. You have to find it. So we talked about cheating a little bit. We called it cheating or a hack. We're going to type this in to y equals. So x to the third, there's your x button, right next to alpha, x, power key, 3. And if you have a calculator like mine, you might need to hit over to get back down on the ground. Minus 5x, squared button's over here, kind of diagonal from 7, plus 6x minus 2. Okay, we'll hit graph. And we're looking for where it's going to cross nice numbers. Now, if yours doesn't cross a nice number, go back and double check that you typed it in right. If your graph is wonky, okay, zoom. Standard should get you back to the normal screen. Okay. Now, if I'm looking at that close, it looks like I crossed the x-axis here, right before 1, and it looks like I crossed at 1, and then this one's definitely a decimal. So as far as nice numbers go, my only hope there is 1. And to confirm that it's 1, focus, there it goes, we're going to push trace, 1, enter. And you're telling it, hey, trace the graph, tell me what the values are at x equals 1. 1, 0. Perfect. So that's what we want to use in our synthetic division. So 1 is the number in the box. And then we copy the coefficients. Be on the lookout for any missing numbers or missing spots, right? If you had a missing spot, you'd have to put a 0 placeholder. So like if we didn't have an x squared, it went x to the third plus 6x, we would have to have a 0 placeholder there. Your first number drops down, and then we do 1 times 1, that's 1. Negative 5 plus 1, we add down, that's negative 4. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Adds down to 2. 2 times 1 is 2. Adds down to 0. No remainder. No remainder. Perfect. Okay. And of course there's no remainder because we knew that it should work. That's why we did the graphing calculator. Now what this is 1x squared minus 4x plus 2. And we can double check, but you're not going to find anything that's going to factor. We can definitely double check. I would really recommend trying to factor first. But you're not going to find anything that multiplies to positive 2 and adds to a negative 4. So that's our hint that we're going to probably have to use quadratic formula. Okay, and just from up here in your synthetic division, that's your A, B, and C. So we have negative of negative 4 plus or minus square root negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 2 all over 2a, 2 times 1. Okay, again, I recommend simplifying inside the square root. And again, we're going to need parentheses around a negative number squared. And inside the square root, we should have 8. Okay, again, that's pretty small. This one does have potential to have a bigger number under the square root signs. And that, I mean, you should be prepared. We just had that on 4a, reducing those radicals. So this is going to be positive 4 plus or minus the square root of 8 over 2. Okay, finding a perfect square that goes into 8. Pretty small, so we can figure that out pretty quickly. That's 4 times 2. Again, we're looking for the biggest perfect square that fits in there. 4 is the biggest perfect square that fits into 8. So we'll have 4 plus or minus. The square root of 4 is 2. I can't do the square root of 2, so I leave that alone. And we're over 2. Now when I go to reduce this, we're looking at the regular numbers, not the radical numbers, just the regular numbers. So 4, 2, 2, they can all be divided by a 2. 2 plus or minus 1 radical 2. And don't forget, your very first number up here is also an answer, and x equals 1. Okay, that's another easy one to forget. Okay, last one, long division. And this is kind of a longer problem. Nothing's individually very difficult here, but there's a lot of little steps. So it tells you that x squared minus 8 is a factor and to use long division. Now for the long division part, I would throw a 0x in the middle of that as a placeholder. Okay, so we're going to have, let me get this centered. I got notebook paper underneath, so that's how I do my straight lines. We're going to have x squared plus 0x minus 8. X to the 4th plus 8x to the 3rd plus 7x squared minus 64x minus 120. Okay? So again, having that 0x there, I would recommend that for the division part, but the solving part at the end, I'm not going to have it. And again, be on the lookout for any missing spots that you would have to put a 0x placeholder inside here. Okay, so step 1 is we're going to compare the fronts. If you need to do a little scratch work on the side, feel free. X to the 4th divided by x squared should equal x squared, 1x squared. So I have 1x squared up here on the top, and we multiply it back to everything. X squared times x squared is x to the 4th. 1x squared times 0x is going to be 0x to the 3rd. And then x squared times negative 8 will have minus 8x squared. Now this is where long division gets a little tricky and we make silly mistakes. Okay, synthetic division up there, we add it down. Long division, we subtract down. And I do minus with parentheses to remind myself to subtract down. If you have a different way that works better for you, feel free to use that. X to the 4th minus x to the 4th should cancel out. 8x to the 3rd minus 0x to the 3rd will be 8x to the 3rd. 7 minus minus, so this is a tricky spot here. 7 minus minus, so plus 8 will be 15x squared. And then we bring the next number down. And we start the whole process over again. Okay? 8x to the 3rd divided by x squared should give us a positive 8x. And I multiply that back to everything. And we'll have 8x to the 3rd. 8 times 0 will be 0x squared. And 8 times negative 8 will have minus 64x. Again, remember to subtract down. 8x to the third minus 8x to the third will cancel. 15 minus 0 is going to be 15x squared. Negative 64 minus minus, so plus, that'll be 0x. And we bring down the last spot. Last time through, 15x squared divided by x squared should be a positive 15. We're going to multiply this back. 15x squared. 15 times 0 is 0x. 15 times negative 8 is minus 120. And these should all match up. It told us it was a factor, so these all should work perfectly then with no remainder. All right, so we divided this big long polynomial by x squared minus 8, and this is what we got. We're not done. We're not done. So we have x squared minus 8. We took that big long one, and now we broke it down to x squared minus 8 and x squared plus 8x plus 15. And we're going to set that equal to 0 and solve. Okay, this one just happens to work out to where we can factor it. It might not factor. You might have to use quadratic formula again. But this one we can factor to x plus 3 and x plus 5. What multiplies to 15 and adds to positive 8? Positive 5, positive 3. What makes each of those groups equal 0? If x was negative 5 and if x was negative 3. On the left-hand side, x squared minus 8 equals 0. X squared equals 8. Okay, we're going to square root, and we've reduced the square root of 8 already. Already today. Up here in the previous problem, we know we can break that down to 4 times 2. Square root of 4 will be 2. So we're going to have plus or minus 2 radical 2. And, don't forget, negative 3 and negative 5. All right? There you go, folks. There's 4b in a nutshell. That was about 2 to 3 weeks worth of stuff, all broken down there in 22 minutes. Okay, hopefully that helped. If you have any questions, come see me. Best of luck on your test.